Hey YouTube, time to get learnt again. Today I'm showing you how to take the fender off a Mk2 Golf, Jetta, GTI, GLI, whatever. This is my 86 16 valve, but like I said, this applies to any Mk2 car. It's fairly simple, except for Volkswagen decided to put a bunch of bolts in and then glue it on, so it's a big old pain in the ass when you go to take them off for the first time. Especially if you're in a junkyard. So, first things first, get the car jacked up. Jack stand under the forward control arm mount. With a Mk2, always jack it up by the little plate under the rear control arm mount, because the jack point that they give you likes to rot away to nothing, and then you put your jack through the floor and then hate yourself. So let's get into it. So now that the car is up on jack stands, as with any car, you start by taking out the plastic inner fender liner here, and this is just a bunch of 8mm screws that go all around the inside of this thing. As you can see, most of my screws are already gone because previous owners are the true salt of the earth. So once you have that off, you can get to the bolts and the glue inside. So as you probably already noticed, this car is so rusty that I probably shouldn't have attempted to save it, but I like it too much and it's getting saved whether it likes it or not. But at least it did save me a little bit of time. That some of the screws in here were already rotted out from the fender. You can see that glorious Pennsylvania salt doing its job there. Thanks, PennDOT. So, nice. Now I'll get you off the tripod and come in for a closer look. So, this is what makes this job such a pain in the ass. These two bolts here, Volkswagen installed them and then they undercoated right over top of them, and that rubber undercoating is some serious shit. So, in order to get this off, you have to dig out around these two bolts with an X-Acto knife, a utility knife, or some kind of pick, and then either get your heat gun or a utility knife to cut or just melt all this undercoating under here so you can pull the fender off. So, before we get to that, we will take off the rest of the bolts, consisting of these several that are up underneath the hood here, obviously. And then there is one right underneath the grill here. Where is it? Right there, covered up by that conduit. There is usually one on the bottom that holds the chin panel on. And after you get all those out, it's just these two in the back here. Now, I already have the bumper off. You don't need to take the bumper to take the fender off. It's especially easy on a small bumper car because the bumper cover flexes just enough to get this little, the knob out of the slot in the bumper, but with a big bumper car, you're kind of stuck with taking the bumper off. Okay, so now that I have all the fasteners taken out, this one down here, all these along the top, as well as one down in the corner up underneath here, as well as the two that were covered in goop. Now you can see that the fender is not held on by much. All that's holding this on right now is that undercoating and glue underneath there. So we'll get this corner marker out, which is just one Phillips head screw here, and it pops out and slides. And then we'll get into getting all that undercoating off. So the driver's side was a little too easy, so I switched to the passenger side. And this is a little more like what I saw before, and I imagine what you can expect when you do yours. So right here are the two bolts that you need to get out, and they are slathered with goop. So what you want to do is take your utility knife and just start carving out around the head of that bolt till you can get your 10mm socket on there. Alright, so I carved those out just enough to get my socket on there and was able to pull them out. You can see how much undercoating came with them. So that's the easy part. Now what you need to do is take your utility knife and start just slicing right down the undercoating right in this corner here, because that's where the seam is that the fender meets the unibody. So once you've done all you can do up at the front, open the door and come back here behind the fender and get your comically oversized screwdriver in there and just get it in and then twist it just to open that seam up as much as you can. I know this picture isn't that great, but that's all I can do. So now that you pried it free from all the undercoating, the fender is just about ready to come off, and all you have to worry about is the little drain tube for the sunroof back here. Just pull that out so you don't rip it off, and then it should just lift right off. And there you have a fender. So once you have your old fenders off, putting the new ones on isn't too much of a task. There's no real trick to it. Just put the bolts back in and undercoat it again if you want to be a good noodle. And earlier I briefly mentioned the difference between the big bumper and the small bumper fenders. There aren't really any except for the repeater light back here and the holes for the trim. But your main concern is this little mount that keys into the bumper right here. So if you need to mix match parts on the front end of your car, you're just going to have to switch that one over depending on what bumper you use. So I guess that's about it for this tutorial. Like and subscribe if you want. I don't really care. Yum.